Hello, friends. My name is Ihor Havryshchak. This is the traditional YouTube platform of Channel 24. Today is November 15th and traditionally political strategist Mikhail Sheitelman is in live broadcast with us. Mikhail, hello. Glory to Ukraine. Hello, Ihor. There will be an active dispatch of Mikhail Sheitelman to the resources. Be sure to subscribe. There is always up-to-date information. By the way, I looked at it myself yesterday, and you remembered the 9 days after Trump's election. Today is probably the 10th day of Trump's election, right? And we can already talk a little about some appointments. I don't know, Mikhail, can we divide into domestic and foreign policy? Because here is Rubio and a new advisor from the National Security Service. They will probably have more to do with Ukraine. How would you rate them? Because Rubio, as he said, will act from a position of strength. Trump said earlier today that, at least, the Western media today is already shifting the blame to those who argue that this war must be stopped, and on what terms it should look. So how to evaluate these statements? Should we look at them with caution or hope for them? Well, yes, first of all, we need to divide into those who concern us and those who do not concern us, of course. If you really named the two main people who definitely concern us, then in both cases we should consider that we were very lucky. Again, based on the incoming conditions, that is, based on the fact that the president is definitely Donald Trump. That is, when Donald Trump is already president, and there is a choice, then he will definitely choose only those who support his line, that is, the truce line between us and the Russian Federation. He would not choose people who shout no truce, war to the bitter end, and so on. Why does he need such people? But at the same time, we were lucky with these two specific appointments. Others, perhaps, were less lucky, with the fact that these are still two people who have consistently supported Ukraine all along. And there is even one more, perhaps even, strange as it may seem, more important. That they are anti-Russian. This is specifically, yes, these two people are absolutely anti-Russian. They consider Russia a pariah country and so on. That's the key. Because there are people who don't think so. For example, Comrade Rameau, who was appointed together with Musk to the Efficiency Commission, he, on the contrary, considers Russia to be a completely normal country, a participant in the world process, very important, and is going to go to Russia in 2025. Well, or rather, he was going to do it while he was trying to be elected as a candidate. Therefore, specifically Rubio and Volz, it was very lucky for us twice. It doesn't matter at this moment, in fact, what plan they have in their heads, and no one needs this plan. They will have a plan in Trump's head. They will fulfill it for the time being. But it is important that they will fulfill it with hatred for Russia in their hearts. Mikhail, and here you are about Elon Musk. Musk will become the head of a new ministry to fight bureaucracy in the United States. Is it a detachment or an emphasis on domestic politics? And in general, as they always like to report in the United States, unnamed journalists say that in fact Musk is the second president now. He is 24/7 with Trump, he is constantly in his villa, all the related photos are easily not with Musk, and many in Trump's entourage are not satisfied with the fact that Musk has such a strong influence after 9 to 10 days. It looks like Musk may be Trump's weak point. We don't know yet where this will lead, but it could lead to a huge conflict that could explode within this administration based on everything that's going on. Here, let's go first. Musk has already quarreled with Scholz, just managed to concretely call Scholz an idiot, and apparently, after he called Scholz an idiot, and Scholz even answered him, Scholz was kind of crossed off the list of the living in American politics. In what sense? For example, there was a conversation with Scholz, Trump, we know this for sure, because Scholz's office reported on this conversation. But when Fox News published portraits of world leaders with whom Trump spoke, Scholz disappeared there. You see, Scholz is no longer in favor, as it were. Macron was there, Zelenskyy was there, Netanyahu and others were there, but Scholz was not there. Therefore, if you believe the publications that Moscow is interfering and influencing everywhere, then, of course, it was he who said, that's it, Scholz, goodbye. He went on to explain to Italy that there is no democracy in Italy. Moreover, he explained this, referring to the fact that Italy terribly sends refugees to Albania. The president of Italy had to answer the topic of what democracy is, where it is not. This is the second country with which Scholz managed to quarrel. Tonight he managed to meet with the Iranian ambassador, which is also very extravagant for a private person. So far, this is a private person, of course, and no one knows what he is meeting with the Iranian ambassador about. Therefore, one of his initiatives is crazier than the other. In what sense? Come on, well, who is Elon Musk? Is that how it is? Who is Elon Musk? Who is he anyway? What does he understand in international affairs? On what grounds, for example, was he present during the conversation between Zelenskyy and Trump? On which one? Who is that? As an expert on the Russian-Ukrainian war. And at what point did he become one? Because he talked to Putin, so he is a specialist. Or because he wrote several pro-Russian tweets, so he is a specialist. It is completely incomprehensible. I can imagine how outraged it is to people within the system, let's put it this way. And now add to this everything that, first of all, he will lead, so you ask, is this his appointment, this is his dismissal or not? And it's all in his hands. You know that a person paints a place, and it is not a place that paints a person. I always like to give an example. For example, in Latvia there is a president who plays an exclusively symbolic role, and the head of state governs the prime minister, and the president is a symbolic figure. But when the charismatic Vera Vike Freiberger, a world-famous woman at that moment, was the president of Latvia, for some reason she ruled the country. Well, somehow it turned out that way anyway. So it is with Musk. On the one hand, he has been assigned to a certain area that is only really in the United States, and which seems to be a salvation for us, because we understand that he is a Russian spy, works for Russia, and it seems that he will not affect us. But he will start going to all the meetings. For some reason he is going to be appointed by the Bureau to fight bureaucracy, which in itself, of course, is abstract, because a bureau with bureaucracy, on the contrary. But he meets with the Iranian ambassador, and not to spend domestic budgets on something, to study the construction of a fence. No, somehow he does completely different things, he does what he wants. Therefore, it seems that they really suspended me, sent me somewhere incomprehensible. But this will not stop him. Mikhail, we know that Elon Musk, someone calls him a genius in business, but he is a subsidized person, all his contracts are government contracts, i.e. there is always money. And he, as far as I know, has a considerable investment in China. Many say that Trump will come, and the policy in China will be much tougher. But there is Musk, who has his own assets. The New York Times writes that under Trump, security guarantees will need to be put first in Ukraine, not the return of territories and talk about territories. To what extent can this be a reality? First, about the fact that Musk, he has a subsidized company there. Yes, there are some subsidies. There is a Tesla, it is unlikely that it is subsidized. I don't know, in my opinion, it is quite commercial. Therefore, I think it is too early to accuse Musk of being America's main corrupt official. But this will be a problem. There have already been publications that, firstly, he has no right to be the chairman of this committee, if he simultaneously retains control over his businesses. That is, he must give up this control. And is he ready to give up control, for example, over Twitter, if it turns out that money came from Russia to buy Twitter? These are those who will come to govern on his behalf. Instead of him, managers should be independent. They will all see what is there, who took the money from what, where they took the money from. There will also be a problem. There is already a publication that Trump does not even have the right to establish this commission or committee. He does not have the right. There is something according to the law, but I don't know how. Therefore, yes, there will be, frankly, a lot of contradictions, not only where Musk produces what, so far no one understands how to form it at all. Because Trump now has about 1 million decisions that many doubt, the Pentagon, the Department of Health. So, about our security guarantees, yes, in the sense that if... Well, what does Trump insist on? Let's be honest. On the fact that it is necessary to arrange a truce with the Russians. Somehow. That is, I will now organize negotiations. I will give you some kind of roadmap where you should go, and you, please, Ukrainians and Russians, reach an agreement on a truce. Not about peace, but about a truce. Because he has never, Trump said that he will stop the peace, he says, I will stop the war, that is, the truce. But if let's assume that we are really forced or persuaded, I explain that it is beneficial for us now. Let's not even treat, yes, whether we want it or not, well, a truce. Then really, what security guarantees can a truce have, given that part of the territory will remain occupied for this time? Here is another paper, well, now not the Budapest Memorandum, but the Washington Memorandum. Well, it is unlikely that it will suit us. That is, we physically need military forces, the United States, NATO, I don't know who, which will be located throughout the unoccupied territory and directly physically hold the front line, which we will believe that they will not flee in danger. Can such a military force exist? Yesterday we received an answer from NATO that this cannot happen. When the chairman of the NATO Military Committee, Rob Bauer, what did he say? He said that we would have thrown the Russians out of Ukraine, but Russia has nuclear weapons, and otherwise we would have been in Ukraine a long time ago and would have thrown them out. But no truce cancels the fact that Russia has nuclear weapons. So then will they throw it out or not? Why will they throw out during the truce? Well, if they go further, yes, forward. And they will not be without a truce. What is the difference? All this is being cancelled now because of the fear of automatic nuclear weapons. Therefore, it really became difficult for me to come up with security guarantees. And even how will the fact that we are considered a member of NATO be different from the Budapest Memorandum? Well, for real, the troops will be different from the Budapest Memorandum if you took and deployed here physically, I don't know, a 100,000 contingent in Ukraine, and along the line, some kind of line that will be established as a ceasefire line. This, as Putin says, is already a fact on the ground, yes, when they are standing, 100,000 people, and they will not go anywhere. And if they begin to step on them, they will begin to fight back just to save themselves. But that's the only way. This is the only guarantee of safety. Yes, it is also not 100%, but it is something that can be relied on. Any papers, but what should we do with them? That was my next question. Some contracts are signed. If there are no security guarantees now, then why give them later? If now there is no opportunity to admit Ukraine to NATO, why after a truce or the stop of the hot phase, someone will say, like Boris Johnson, who said, if the assistance from the United States decreases, then British troops can be in Ukraine. As Macron said about his troops in Odessa. No, look, I would not discard this statement. Firstly, Macron said something, and he did not cancel it. And then, when he said this, and everyone began to say, well, where are his troops? Then I immediately understood Macron and, apparently, understood correctly. He said this in the sense that if the Russians, as they call it now, break through the front or something like that, go directly to some large cities and there is a risk of genocide of large cities, then he sends a contingent there. And then these reservations began. That is, at first he just said it, but how it would read, it seems to me, in his idea, that he would not allow further mass genocide. Now, when our people leave some city or village, there is no population left there. A few people remain there who wanted to stay for some reason. But, in principle, there is no population left there. The Russians do not get Ukrainian residents at their disposal. But we understand what will happen if they approach some big city. This is what Macron was talking about. And we should be grateful to Johnson again now. Because Johnson, aka Elon Musk #2, is a friend of Trump. And Trump called Johnson with all this. And when Johnson says that, he's not just saying it to us, he's saying it to Trump. Yes, by the way, there was a publication yesterday that Trump has not yet been able to find a common language with Keir Starmer. And that Keir Starmer is still trying to find an approach to Trump, and Johnson has long found it. And this is scary to our hands, because this is all that Johnson dictates to Trump. If Musk says in one ear that it is necessary to urgently give up Crimea, to build a water pipeline there, to hold a referendum in Lugansk and so on, well, everything that the Kremlin masters, so to speak, instructed him to pursue such a line, then at this time Johnson says, look, if you do not give help, we will outcircle the British troops, I will force them, persuade them, and so on. That's something like this. Therefore, it is very beneficial for us. Mikhail, do you think this cadence of Trump will be different from his 45th presidency? Because then he changed the head of the Pentagon 4 times, everyone who disagreed, he was constantly in chaos. Do you think there will also be constant chaos in this cadence? Or did he place people in the beginning and then take into account the mistakes in his previous cadence? Because his administration was headed by a good manager, who was a pro-Rogano, and in fact she knows how to build management. 2 days ago, I would have told you that I don't know, because I didn't live under Trump in that cadence, so it would be very difficult for me to compare anything. But during these 2 days, he managed to make so many decisions, Trump, that he seriously led me into doubt about the possibility of doing some things adequately, and not only me. There, in my opinion, the Trumpists are already a little frightened in America. Yes, look, it means that yesterday there was a massive seething in the Pentagon. Firstly, he is going to purge the Pentagon, for which he creates some other commission. He will sort out each personal general, leave, fire, and, finally, appoint the TV presenter as the Secretary of Defense. To which the Ministry of Defense asked, "But there, you still need to pass 70 checks through the Senate, and we won't even have candidates for these positions, because they won't go to work for a TV presenter." Then the Pentagon replied as follows: "Listen, this TV presenter, he had previously made programs on TV. And here you need to manage the Pentagon, where tens of thousands of people work, if not hundreds of thousands in the Pentagon." As if he had never managed anything, how he could manage tens of thousands of people. And that sounds very reasonable. Well, it's clean from the outside, yes, if you don't delve into anything further. Then this appointment, which took place tonight, we do not yet know for sure about the press secretary, because these are still rumors. But we already know about the Secretary of Health that this is Kennedy Jr., apparently. So, Kennedy Jr., whom Trump said to appoint as Secretary of Health, is a very famous person in America. And famous twice, not once. At first, Kennedy Jr. became famous for his struggle for the preservation of nature. Just a very man was engaged in nature conservation, wrote a dozen books about it, participated in a bunch of all sorts of events and was directly the leader of the topic of nature conservation in America in general. And he got on the covers of everything and had a lot of support. But, a little later, due to some personal circumstances, I apologize for the expression, went crazy, in the literal sense of the word. And when we saw this Kennedy Jr. and were very afraid of him as a candidate, remember, yes, he was anti-Ukrainian and so on. So, at that moment, he was already known in America as the main anti-vaxxer, as a person who, thanks to him, several topics became popular. Perhaps he did not invent them himself, although I think he came up with something. The first thing he came up with was that 5G networks spread the virus through people's heads. I mean, it's Kennedy Jr., At least, all authorship is attributed entirely to him. In America, it is known that he spread such a story. The second is that he is spreading the story that Bill Gates created the coronavirus in order to cash in on it and pour liquid chips into everyone's heads through vaccinations, too. It is Kennedy Jr. in America who symbolizes all this. He was banned from all social networks for all this. And this person is appointed Minister of Health. And if yesterday we heard the indignation of people in the Pentagon about the actor TV presenter, today, I think, we will hear the indignation of the employees of the Ministry of Health, doctors, I don't know. I don't know if the doctors there somehow fall under the Ministry of Health or not. But these appointments are more than extravagant. And this story about, you see, in a pair, these two appointments, if you take them, they are of different classes of purpose. Wherein, it seems that the level of dissatisfaction may be the same, but the types of appointments are different. The first purpose, it is approximately, I recognize him. What is it? I remember, when it was a case for one person in Russia, a very famous Forbes journalist, Forbes magazine, a famous journalist of Forbes magazine, he was appointed president of a bank, general director of a bank, a huge investment bank, the largest in Russia at that time. Why? He wrote good articles, so he was appointed. Do you understand? But that was a long time ago, almost 20 years ago, and the bank, of course, collapsed after that, because a person knows how to write articles, and not manage investment banks. These are different things, and the people who appointed him are apparently very narrow-minded people. thinking that since he writes good articles, it means that he can manage. Trump is one of this type, since he talks well on TV about the Department of Defense, that everything is wrong in it, then he himself will manage the Department of Defense well. Well, you see, different people write to me that I am doing the Sheitelman channel on YouTube incorrectly, all sorts of readers write, viewers write that it is wrong, that I should do it this way. But it seems to me that if I let them manage it, then the viewers, subscribers, and so on will disappear. For some reason, I have no doubt about it. Or there, if we give everyone who gives advice on how to conduct military or offensive defensive operations there to manage the Ukrainian army, then it will not end well either. And Trump is taking this step. And the second, the other, well, I like him. He brings such things, let's really support him. Now he will show common sense. Both approaches cause me real anxiety if you are asking about a second term. We can look further, we will have to watch Trump. We can't do anything, it's none of our business. But look, for the first time I had. During the election campaign, of course, I followed Trump and listened to what he had to say. And I had bad feelings. But everyone assured me, Americans and Trumpists, first of all, that, don't pay attention to what he says, what's the difference, he's so cool that there are no words at all. I was unhappy that why say that then, but nevertheless, it's good, they are in America, they know better, But we have two neighbors in the north and in the east, Putin and Lukashenko, or rather, two peoples who once chose for themselves, then they may have regretted it or not, but once they chose such people as their leaders, and now they are ruled by such crazy old men. These are exactly the classics of the genre, when you come somewhere to visit relatives for a birthday, and some old man is sitting there, because he is someone's second cousin, and he is talking all sorts of nonsense, drunk. This is what Lukashenko says, this is what Putin says, this is how they, in fact, govern their countries. And then I had concerns about Trump. It is clear that he does not drink, but he has become 8 years older, compared to the last cadence, and I am afraid that we may be surprised a few more times. You know, Mikhail, they say that with age they get smarter, gain experience. You see, I have his speeches, I watched his interview with Musk, for example, Trump's interview with Musk. Well, some individual speeches are quite long, they were incoherent speeches, just incoherent, you know. Michael, January 20th has not yet come, the Democrats are still at the top. The Pentagon said that by the end of the cadence, 1.7 billion in aid will be urgently sent. Roughly speaking, 10 million per day. Good help from the Pentagon. Well, on November 16th, Joe Biden arrived in Peru today, where he can meet with Xi Jinping. How serious is it? Is this just a formality to end his presidency, his political career? Or will they discuss something serious? First of all, did you say how much? 5 million a day? 10? 10 a day? No, it can't be. Definitely more. Because 10 million a day is 300 million a month. We have a little over 2 months left. I'm sorry, I'm confusing something. Here, you are a little mistaken. There is not 10 million a day, but 100 million a day. And this changes everything. I will explain why it changes everything. We have received the packages that we have received so far. If you remember, after the April establishment of these very companies, after we were given this money, the packages that we received were $200–250 million each. We received them every few weeks. And now it turns out that in order to have time to issue this amount, firstly, even the Pentagon itself said that they have 9 billion, not 7, but well, if you take 7, then it turns out that we should be given such a package every 2 days. Here is the one that we used to be given once every 2, 3, 4 weeks, now they should be given once every 2 days. And a week has passed since we were told that they would do this. We saw 0 such packages in a week, 0 pieces, that is, as if 3.5 such packages had already accumulated somewhere. So it is hard to believe that they are able to do this at all. And after all, the first thing that was there was a fear that they did not have it in stock, they won't have time to deliver, and we won't have time to order, we won't be able to formalize. There is some kind of administration, the current Biden administration, has turned into something completely amorphous. I think so, because when one of them declares, we will not abandon anyone, we will definitely implement all this, and where is it? And you have been in this situation for 10 days, the 10th day today, and somehow we did not see anything. And you will tell us every 10 days that we will definitely give all this money. Or when Blinken tells us that no, everything is fine, no one will abandon us. So everyone will leave Blinken in 2 months. He has to go home, he's probably collecting boxes now sitting in the White House. In 10 days, the Biden administration has done nothing, it seems to me. It seems to me that she is completely confused, completely demoralized. And we didn't hear anything from her. Well, we heard from Sullivan that we would give money, but we did not see where it was. We heard from the Pentagon that we have everything ready, we are ready to give. But again they did not see anything. Very strange. This behavior is very strange. And strange in what sense? It seems to me that it is precisely because they are demoralized, that there are no management mechanisms now, or something. We saw Biden running on the beach and not looking good. And his meeting with Comrade Xi, well, it's not because it's urgently scheduled, that in the end I'm going to give Trump his future policy on China. No, it's all related to the G20, which everyone is flying to. The G20 will be held in Brazil, and it is clear that around this G20 meetings are scheduled in pairs, they are scheduled a year before, that is, when it becomes known that the G20 is in Brazil, then the protocol service appoints where, who, with whom else will meet in pairs. Therefore, I am not ready to expect any real results from the president, who is leaving in 2 months. I am not ready to believe that there will be at least something there. Therefore, you can ignore it at all. Mikhail, I would also like to say a few words about the climate forum in Azerbaijan. Last year he was in Dubai, Azerbaijan, Baku, and next year he will be in Brazil. And a lot of people began to shout that Azerbaijan, a country that is not quite associated with any kind of ecology, is hosting this forum. How reasoned is this? Because for me this is a platform where summits are held. This country does not necessarily have to be a model in ecology. And, of course, it should be remembered separately that the Taliban were invited there, with whom they will discuss some environmental issues. So, I think that Azerbaijan is no more environmentally unfriendly than almost all other countries in the world. That is, what can I say? But there are environmental summits, they should be held in environmentally friendly countries, but then they should be held all the time in those 10 countries that can be attributed to this category. Everyone else will pollute something there. And it is clear that Azerbaijan is fighting pollution. I mean, they have anti-pollution programs and so on. I just personally told you, from personal experience, before the war one was in Baku, I was in Baku for the first time, and I decided to go on an excursion, so to speak, because one of the most famous places there is the Black City of Baku. The Black City appeared back in the 19th century, I think, or somewhere on the border of the 19th and 20th centuries, because it was a part of Baku where they were engaged in oil refining. That is, oil was extracted, and then everything went there. And all the soot from this oil refining, fuel oil and so on, covered all the walls, and the whole city became absolutely. Well, this section of the city, this large section of the city, has become completely black. And when I tried to get there, because I found a map where it was and so forth, I don't think I can find something there. Here is an old map, it is not clear where. I went there just to this place, to this black city, and it was completely demolished. This is a huge chunk. Well, I mean, it's the size of a real city. In its place, a white city was built, absolutely white, of white stone. And they gave this city mainly to the IT industry. An attempt to build an IT industry there. This is an example of the fact that Azerbaijan, of course, is doing all this. But this is a UN conference. That is, all the countries that are in the UN, they can all take turns to claim. But for this, they need to have resources, physical sites there. And the city of Baku, of all the cities of the former Soviet Union where I have been, and I have visited 13 of the 15 republics of the former USSR, Baku is the most progressive city after the collapse of the USSR. This is the level of progress of the city, Baku is the highest absolutely. That is, this is fantasy. It does not exist anywhere else in all the expanses of the former Soviet Union. When you have, excuse me, underground passages with escalators, everything with escalators. Where have you seen this, right? Therefore, Baku is a very large and serious platform. Then you say, yes, they called the Taliban. So it was not Baku that invited him. I mean, it was the UN that invited the government of Afghanistan. He recognizes the Taliban in Afghanistan, so they come. Even Lukashenko was there. I think Lukashenko is much worse than the Taliban in this sense. Yes, the Taliban are very creepy there, dubious and so on, but what kind of people are running Afghanistan? Lukashenko is a man who seized power by force, with a machine gun in his hands, recently personally tortured people in Belarusian prisons. He was photographed there, as we know, in the final photo at this summit. By the way, yesterday, which is the funniest thing, yesterday he spoke about this, and, oh, again I apologize for the expression, he this summit in every possible way. It's really real, that, so to speak, I went in vain. Why did they collect it at all, that they discuss all sorts of nonsense? Mikhail, I would like to say a few words about what is happening at the front. Now there is a serious escalation on the part of the occupiers. They are advancing as best they can. The fighting in the Kursk direction became especially tough. By the way, both Bild and all other recognized, let's say, experts at the front write that the disaster is in Russia, in Kursk. Well, it's true, they don't have equipment there, they deprive a lot of manpower. As I understand it, the Kremlin also does not really understand what to expect from Trump, so they are trying before the inauguration. Many people say how Ukraine could advance further and knock the USSR out of the Kursk direction. Probably yes. In what sense? Why probably? Because they have been coming for more than 6 months in different directions, many at the same time. We very often say, military experts, that, well, they cannot advance like this for a long time in all directions at the same time. They must run out of resources there, and so on. Well, unfortunately, it does not end yet, as we can see. As for the deadlines, we used to constantly hear that someone sets some deadlines for someone, that it was ordered by January 1st, I don't know, 2023 to capture the entire Donetsk region, I think you remember that. And by December 10, 2022, there was a demand to urgently seize the entire Donetsk region, because Putin has some kind of address to the Federal Assembly, and before that, some more. But since somehow they did not seize anything, well, they did not seize everything. Therefore, all these dates that are allegedly appointed there in the Kremlin, we have never heard this from Putin or from anyone. We have not heard of the dates. We know that he wants to seize it. He said bluntly, I want to seize this area, this, that. But we have never heard a deadline from anyone from the Kremlin leadership. That is, all these are inventions, well, like, probably, he wants for the new year, probably he wants for the Federal Assembly, probably he wants for his elections, probably he wants what else they have there on the day of the gopher or what they celebrate there. Therefore, all these are our own speculations. Yes, but separately, of course, the Kursk region is critically important for them, because otherwise their myth will collapse that well, they need to agree on what. Why should we make a new border, along the front line, right? And what about the front line? That is, the Kursk region then goes to Ukraine, Sudra goes to Ukraine. Well, there are no other arguments. Well, since you say therefore, in order to boldly continue the words of reality on the ground, that is, where whose troops are, he receives, they really need to return the Kursk region first of all for this. Mikhail, in conclusion, literally as soon as Trump won, his head from the headquarters said that, they say, forget the Ukrainians about Crimea, this is already a past story. Later, Trump made excuses that this was only his personal opinion, although, I tell you, they did not deny it. They did not say that he said something stupid, they said that it was his personal opinion. Should this worry us? Because is this a statement by Trump's politicians, or is it chaos inside? And to what extent, for example, does Marco Rubio say that we will overcome the path to peace through force? Through this force, who will suffer more, Ukraine or Russia? I think that so far, first of all, Trump does not have any specific plan. And we hear it, otherwise it will have already been announced somehow. Second, personally, it seems to me that Trump does not care at all where the front line will be. It doesn't matter to him. He has never stuttered about it in his life and is not even going to. And he is not even going to look at the map. He will unleash this on his assistants. There, you will draw something for them, they say. So he doesn't care. He has promised only one thing so far, and he is going to achieve it. This is a truce. That is, he said, I will stop the war. But he did not say, I will establish peace. He never said it. There is an abyss between stopping the war and establishing peace. Because, for example, I don't know, Here are Armenia and Azerbaijan. Since we remembered Azerbaijan, the war between them was stopped back in 1993. They signed a ceasefire agreement in 1993. But was peace established then? No. At that time, from 1993 to 2020, this is 27 years, there were border skirmishes, mutual shelling, whatnot. Everyone was living in martial law in Karabakh at that moment. Villages were completely empty, even cities such as Dam, which were captured by Armenia, but they were along the front line, and they were generally empty. That is, the Armenians did not settle them either. And then the war of 2020 began. Why did it start? Because the issue was not resolved, and territorial integrity was not restored in Azerbaijan. And in two stages, in 2020 and in 2022, I think, this territorial community was completely restored, completely, 100%. And today, Azerbaijan is already settling in its former occupied territories, recultivating them, demoning them and so on and so forth. Here is a typical example of what a truce was, but not peace. But now they are close to peace. Now Aliyev and Pashinyan are constantly talking about peace, and now, in general, they are discussing the details of what a peace treaty will look like. We will not sign any peace with Russia as an occupied territory. And Trump therefore does not care where he stops this war. Mikhail, thank you for this conversation, for taking the time to analyze the events about geopolitical processes. Friends, I ask you to subscribe to the YouTube channel of Mikhail Sheitelman. There is a link under the video. Like it. My name is Ihor Havryshchak. See you on channel 24.
Поставте лайк, що на цьому клані, що на Михайла Шейтмана. Мене звати Ігор Гаврищак. Побачимось в ефірі 24 каналу.
Thank you, Igor. Goodbye.